Hi, my name is Eric and I'm the founder and director of the Gravestone Paranormal Society. Since we started with one of our investigations of the Avondale mine disaster on YouTube, we thought it would be fitting to return during daylight hours to give you a closer look of this historic site. First, I'd give you a little brief background about this particular area. On September 6, 1869, miners arrived at the colliery in the early morning hours. It was a Monday like any other, with one exception. The miners recently returned from a 3-month strike. Tension between Welsh and Irish miners was high, as was animosity between the miners and the labor management who owned this particular mine. Now, not long after they entered the mine that morning, a fire broke out. It caught the timbers in the shaft, worked its way up to the head house, and then all the buildings to the south were engulfed in flame. It got to the point where it started to work its way up the mountain, and only by the fortune of the wind did that subside, and the fire was pretty much contained to this area. Now, the miners, when the fire broke out, in an attempt to escape what's called black damp, which is the accumulation of carbon monoxide, they erected brattices, and it was a futile attempt. So on September 6, 1869, 108 miners were trapped and they suffocated inside this place. There's another part of the story that's even more tragic. There was a young boy, his name was Willie Hatton. He was 10 years old. Now, he had asked his father numerous times, "Take me into the mine, take me into the mine." On that particular day, his father relented and brought him to the mine. The day was September 6, 1869. He and his father perished here that day. He was only 10 years old. I'm going to take a walk over here. I'm going to show you something a little closer. Now, behind me, you'll notice that there's a hole here. Now, during that period of time, this was a tunnel. Now, this tunnel was where they brought the bodies of the miners out. Now you can see that it's been backfilled over time, but you can also see that some people have been up here and they've dug the hole out with, I guess, intentions of going inside, which is crazy. But anyway, not only were there 108 miners that were trapped at this location, there were 2 volunteers that morning. After they brought in water, they managed to extinguish the flames. These 2 volunteers descended into the shaft. After some time, they weren't heard from. So another 2 miners volunteered to go down and check on them. They were also found dead. They were laying on the floor of the mine. They had succumbed to the black damp as well. That completed the tragedy at 110 miners. What we're going to do is we're going to take you on a walkthrough from when I did my isolation session here. We're going to show you the other buildings that still remain at this location and give you a better insight on what still remains here. Hi. Okay, we're back. There's another interesting fact that I'd like to mention. On September the 11th, 1869, they had an official inquest into the causes of the fire. Now, the majority of the jury was comprised of the DL&W, which is the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroads, and they were the majority shareholders in the mine. Now, their findings were that a spark from a ventilating furnace traveled roughly 160 feet up the shaft and caught the timbers on fire. Another interesting fact that after I mentioned that the miners recently returned from a 3-month strike, the last miner to exit the mine that morning, his name was Anson Dunn. He was an Irish miner. And just by coincidence, he was hired that very same day. Now, okay, this building here, we believe this building is like an overseer's office, where they could have monitored and kept track of the daily workings of the mine during that time. Below me, which you can't see from here, is the original railroad grade. So the railroad cars would have came past here, headed south to other destinations. This is the first building where I did my isolation session. What we're going to do is we're going to take you inside and we're going to show you the inner workings of this building. Okay, so you just follow and we'll walk through. Grab our equipment here. Okay. Let's stay out there for a second. There. Okay, behind me, you see these stairs. Now, during my isolation session, I mentioned that I heard a banging noise from upstairs. Now, the second floor is totally collapsed, and banging noise that night that I heard sounded like wood. It didn't sound like concrete, it sounded like wood. And what we're going to do after we show you the interior of this first level, we'll take you up the steps and we'll show you what I'm talking about up there. So if you'd like, come on inside. We're kind of rushing this because there's a storm coming in. As we said, we believe that this building was for overseeing the everyday workings of the mine. This particular building is the highest one here now. Now, I don't know if it was the highest one during that period of time. That's why we're speculating that this was, in fact, maybe the overseer's building, like I said, where they could monitor the workings of the mine. Behind me, you'll see, Brandon, when you turn around, you can show that these stairs lead up to the second floor. Considering that this building, was erected in 1800s, 1869, you can see that, it's still in fairly good shape. The exterior of the building is a little bit more suspect. A lot of the concrete is brittle, and during periods it will fall. So it kind of makes it a little bit dangerous to come here. What we're going to do now is we're going to take you up top and we're going to show you the upper floor. And like I said, when you see the upper floor, you'll understand what I'm talking about as far as when I was in here and I was doing my isolation session, I heard a distinct banging that sounded like wood. Something else I'd like to mention too is on some of our investigations, particularly with a place like this, we use a technique called period reenactment. And on that particular night, I dressed like a miner. Miner's hat, carbide lamp, tried to speak the way they would have. I came here basically looking for a job in hopes that it would elicit a response from any of the spirits that may be here. We did get some responses. I don't know if you reviewed the video or not yet, but you can see that there are some direct responses. There are intelligent responses to the questions that I was asking that particular night. Okay, we're going to go up top and we're going to show you the second floor. Okay, Brandon, if you give me the camera for a second. There you go. Okay. Now you can see this is the second floor. This is the area that I heard the banging noise. And like I said, it distinctly sounded like wood. You can also see where I'm panning right now. This is the corner of the building. And you can see that it's collapsed. Well, I'll give you a better, closer look on the other side when I walk to my left a little bit. But you can see there's nothing in there that could possibly sound like wood banging. Now, could it potentially have been a piece of concrete that fell down? Absolutely. It could have been a false positive, but like I said, it did not sound like concrete or block. It sounded like wood. Okay, I'm going to walk over this way. The one thing about this location is it's loaded with ticks. So if you do decide to come here and do an investigation, you make sure you bring some bug repellent, because if not, you're going to get covered with bugs. Okay, now I'm going to show you this backside. Now you can see the top of the second floor is totally collapsed. I'll pan over here a little bit more to my right. Now that's the corner I was just showing you. You can see that it has totally collapsed. Okay, I'm going to walk on a little bit further. I'm going to show you a set of stairs that still remain here that would have continued up to the mountain area where more buildings would have been present. Those also burned. One other thing about this location that I'll mention now is that you can hear a lot of vehicles going by. That's because there's a highway right here. So this area has the one major drawback: it has a lot of noise pollution. You got a lot of crickets, frogs, a lot of insects. Part of the reason for that being is down from here, you can't see where I'm pointing. Let's see if I can walk through here and get you a better look. Okay. Now you can see this portion of the building again that is collapsed. Okay, now the direction the camera's pointed, probably maybe 150, 200 yards, is the Susquehanna River. So that's part of the reason why you have a lot of noise pollution here. You can hear a motorcycle going by. That makes it incredibly difficult to analyze EVPs. And what we do, particularly with this location, is what you're looking for when you're analyzing the EVPs is you want to pick out the parts that don't fit. You'll get used to listening to the ambient noise, the crickets, the frogs, the insects, the cars, and you'll be able to pick out the portions that do not fit. Okay, I'm going to pan over this way, and I'm going to show you two guys. On my right is my oldest son, Brandon.
How's it going, guys?
And on the left is my youngest son, Devin.
How you doing?
Now they're my best friends. I couldn't ask for better sons, but they're both competent investigators in their own right. Okay, Brandon, I'm going to give you back the camera.
Okay.
And we're gonna continue down. We're going to continue down to the next building that I went into during my isolation session, and that particular building was used for coal storage. So we'll show you that when we get down there.